My mother was drinking. She used to drink, you know, here you also call it mzinga. She used to do 2 in a day. In 2018, I had a second abortion. The first abortion was in campus. A friend of mine sent me to a doctor, and I told him, please just help me because I don't want to give birth. He said, this thing cannot come out chemically. This thing cannot come out physically. So what he did is he gave me an injection. The injection killed the fetus inside, and then it gives you labor contractions to give birth. I pushed, I pushed, the child came up, but the child was dead because the injection is supposed to kill the fetus, and then you get labor pains.
Imagine being homeless for nearly 4 years. Imagine trying to struggle with the same monster that took your mother's life. Well, thank God we don't look like our past. And our guest next shares that story of how she beat the monster of alcoholism and how she picked up the pieces of her life and pieced them together just to teach people lessons on how to beat the same monster. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
So tell us where you come from and how would you describe yourself?
All right. My name is Rebecca Kye Makyeli. I am Ugandan by origin.
Right.
I am so many things. I've been graced by God to do so many things. I am a published author. I am a speaker who's dedicated to alcohol awareness and prevention advocacy, as well as a certified sobriety coach now, by the grace of God. I've also worked in radio. I also act. I'm an actress as well. Yes, I have that creative bone in me. Ever since I was a child, I couldn't run from it. Yes. And that's basically who I am.
Wow. Where were you born and how was life growing up?
I was born in Uganda, in the town of Entebbe. I grew up in a good family. God blessed our family. My father is currently a retired pilot. Wow. I grew up in a house with my father, my mother, and my siblings. But I am the last born out of 6 children. And the first 4 siblings, when I was really young, when I was about 4 years old, they left the country. I think even younger, they left the country. They were much older than me, but they left the country, and it just left me and my elder brother. And we grew up in a good home. We were privileged to go to very good schools. And so as we grew up, I remember in 2001, my father was transferred here to Kenya, yeah, to work. And so during the holidays, we would move from Uganda, come here to see him. But in Kampala, we stayed with mom. And of course, as the years went by, I think when I was 8 years old, I noticed that there was something off with mom, you know, as the years went on. There's this incident where my father would come back to Uganda for short bits of holiday, like let's say 3 days, 4 days, a week, and then come back. So this one time he came back, and I think my father is a very soft-spoken man. I had never heard him raise his voice in his life. And so he was speaking to my mom, and I heard their voices were raised, and I said, what's going on? And I remember he closed the door. I just heard the door closing, and then I was so scared, so I peeped in the keyhole. He was locking the bedroom door. He was dressed in his pilot attire and his crew bag, and he was locking the bedroom door. But I could hear mom's voice inside. She was saying, don't lock, open the door. And then I saw him, he got the key, he got into the car, and he left. He was away for about 2 or 3 days, and my mom was locked in the room. But when I look back, I understand now what was happening. He was trying to keep her from going outside to buy alcohol. Over time, the relationship with my mom became very strained because I didn't know who to expect. You wake up on Monday, it's a different Annette. You wake up on Tuesday, it's a different Annette, you know. But still, weekends, she would have friends come home. You know, she always had a reason for people to be home. Every weekend there was a party. I grew up in party. Every week, if it was not party at home, she would carry me with her in my primary school uniform to the bar. I would sit in the bar until 11 with my mom doing homework. Yeah, she's watching telenovela. Those days we used to have load shedding. So when she would pick me from school, she would reach somewhere and she could tell if there's power at home or there's no power. So we just turn the car and go down to the bar. So I would sit with her. She would tell me, what do you want to? They bring chips, pork, chicken. As I'm doing homework for her, she's on her.
In a bar.
In a bar. It was normal for me, for my childhood. It was so normal. It was so normal. And I would be in the bar till 11 or 10, and then I have to be at school by 6:30.
And that time you were just 11 years.
11 is even far. It started when I was like 9, 10. Yeah, primary. So life went on. I grew up. I went to secondary school. I was so excited to go to secondary because it was boarding school. I was away from the drama at home. And, you know, so I was a normal teenager. I loved music, I loved lifestyle, culture, you know, that's the pop culture. That really was me. I was always reading magazines, I loved music and all that. I remember I used to play cricket. And in my Form 3, this was 2005, I was selected to go to Zambia to represent my school and the country for a British Council event. I remember the teacher came to me that day and she told me, hey, Rebecca, we've been selected to go and all this, you know. And I was so excited, you know. I said, oh, okay, we've already called your mom, she's coming to pick you. She picked me at about 4 p.m. that day. She came to school, she was very drunk. Oh. My mother was drinking. She used to drink, you know, here you also call it mzinga. She used to do 2 in a day. Gee. We go to the airport. And you know, departures where they check you and then you go. I walked ahead of her and my uncle. I was so irritated. I walked ahead of all of them. I didn't say bye. I kid you not. Even when I was in the line checking, she said, you mean you're not going to say bye to me? You're not going to say bye to me? I remember those words she said. She said, you're not going to say bye to me? Anyway, get me something nice. I love you. You enjoy your trip. Please get me something nice. I went to Zambia, was fun. Zambia was a blast. I was there for about 5 days. About 5 days. On the day when we were coming back, I felt really, really sick. The night before, I felt really, really sick. So I was sick the entire time coming back. When I was going to Zambia, the stopover in Nairobi, I stopped at Jomo Kenyatta International here to get the camera from my dad. So he gave me the camera, he wished me well, told me go enjoy the trip. I get onto the flight to Entebbe. I reach Entebbe, I get to arrivals. I see my aunt, 2 aunts. But it wasn't unusual for me because growing up, on so many occasions, my mom would forget to pick me from school, or she would be so drunk she would send my aunties. She would send, it was a normal thing. Even like visitation days, if she couldn't come and I see an aunt, I wouldn't be surprised. I would know, mom is drunk. So I saw my 2 aunts and I said, it didn't faze me at all. I said, oh, hello. And they welcomed me, they carried my bags. We went all the way, reaching home. Now, just about 100 meters when we were about to reach home, the aunt I was seated with in the back turns to me and tells me, Rebecca, be strong. Over the weekend, mom passed away. And I said, mom dropped me at the airport on Friday morning. What are you talking about that she passed away? They said, yeah, she went to sleep and she never woke up. No. Organ failure. It didn't register. It didn't register because now I was remembering how I was treating her at the airport and you know how I didn't say bye. So when I arrived, I found the school bus was there, my schoolmates were there, there were tents, there were so many cars. I was like, it's actually really true. So life moves on. I went back to school. I did my Form 3, my Form 4, now Form 4 vacation. I was at home. I was never that child who wanting to move, you know, people have holiday plots. No, my father ensured that we had everything we needed at home. So I had a friend of mine, a guy friend. He was like my best friend. He was a really, really cool guy from school. So this one night he calls me, it was about 11 p.m. He calls me at about 11 p.m. and he says, hey, by the way, can I take you out? This is now the next year. I was 15. I said, okay. I went. I didn't even know the things that they were. My goodness. I didn't even know what they wear to the discotheques at night. I was 15. We get to the club. Can you imagine? Security didn't even check me or ask me what my age is or what. This guy, it's like everyone knew this guy. You understand? He's my classmate, same age. So I'm drinking. Next thing I know, you know, the music is sounding good. My friend came for me on the dance floor and said, I'm taking you home now. I told him, I'm not leaving this place. He said, I'm taking you home now. He had to drag me out of the bar and take me home. And so we started drinking on a daily. Now, I went to university. My first university that I went to, everything was okay, first semester. Second semester now is where the problem began. And the university I went to in Uganda is actually known as the Las Vegas of Uganda. So now I was real inside the hub of alcohol. By this time, I was a seasoned drinker. I was 17 in my first year. Second sem arrived, I was missing class. I was hungover most of the time. And the winner of it all is I chewed my tuition. So now it comes to exam time, and now this is now when I'm thinking clearly. And I said, what am I going to tell my father? So I had to come up with a lie, and I told him, I don't like the course that I'm doing in this university. I was requesting if we could get another university. He said, it's okay, you come home, let's talk about it. I applied for another university. Thank God they accepted me on merit. I did another course. I started in that university. First sem was okay. Second sem, same thing. Shoot the tuition, missing classes. Yeah,
You're not
this
learning
time
lessons from your
there's
previous-
nothing. You see the bondage. Bondage is very interesting. So now this time, second sem, I missed classes. I couldn't qualify, and also tuition, I had chewed. So now I said, you know what, Rebecca, this was our second chance. What are we going to tell Dad? I couldn't even tell him. So my father, I was in that university for 3 years, but I wasn't going to class. I was busted because really, you know, a third year student, when you're writing a thesis, a dissertation, you can see someone who has research, who's going to the field. They say this child is not studying. This one who wakes up, leaves the house, comes back at 4 a.m., sleeps, wakes up. There is no studying here. My dad came. He was so angry. My father shouted at me so much. I was even still drunk. I couldn't understand. He shouted at me so much. He said, look at your life. He said so many things in that moment. He said, look at your life. Do you know what ended your mother's life? This is your life. These are your situations. One day they're going to call me to pick a body from the morgue. One day they're going to call me to pick a body from the mortuary. You know, all these things. Then as he was leaving, he said, when I come back from town today, I don't find you in this house. Then he closed the door. I was there in my drunkenness, and I said, you know what? Maybe that last part I haven't understood it properly. Maybe I continued sleeping. Said, maybe I haven't understood. Maybe he's saying, I don't find you sleeping. Maybe I don't want to find you this and this. At lunchtime, the maid came, and she told me, Dad has called me to ask if you're still here. Hi.
You're serious.
I said, this man is kicking me out of his house. He said, okay. I got a bag, like a suitcase, small suitcase. I put in some clothes. I got my academic papers. I got my passport.
Do you have a plan?
I got some photos. I didn't have a plan. Me, I've grown up in my father's house. All I knew was the four walls. I didn't even know that when you're looking for a house, you look for a broker. I didn't know those things. And I remember in 2019, this is the road to my turnaround. There were a lot of events that happened in there, but just to summarize, in 2018, I had a second abortion. The first abortion was in campus, university.
Tell me more about that. What happened?
The first one, what happened? I conceived.
Well, were you in a relationship?
I wasn't in a relationship. It was one of those, you know, when you're drinking and it was those one, you know, it was that foolish, it wasn't even love. I don't know what I can call it, you know, friends with benefits. But of course, I couldn't imagine who was I going to explain that child to? Definitely not my dad, not my family. I said there's even no option for debate here of this situation. I went and terminated the pregnancy.
Is the supposed baby daddy aware of this?
Yeah, eventually we had the conversation later. But even him at that time, he was an unserious person. So even when I told him, he said, it's okay. You know, and we moved on with that. We were even drinking when we were having the conversation. So in 2018, I had the second one. This one actually almost took my life. When I found out that I was pregnant, I literally was on the street. At this time, I was now DJing to survive. Yeah. I'm a DJ, I'm a reggae dancehall DJ, not actively anymore. So what happened is I had no money to remove this child. So I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to drink this baby out. So every day I was drinking. However much I drank, nothing happened. I kept that pregnancy until 7 months. Until I told my brother about it. I told him, you know what? I'm pregnant. He said, you have to give birth to this child. I told him, I'm not giving birth to any child. Kindly just help me get some money and I remove this child. A friend of mine sent me to a doctor. The doctor examined me and said, okay, so how long have you, how far along are you? I said 7 months. The man told me, get up and leave this hospital because it seems you just want to put me out of practice. Do you know that you either you can die or like something wrong can happen? And I told him, please just help me because I don't want to give birth. He said, this thing cannot come out chemically. This thing cannot come out physically. So what he did is he gave me an injection. The injection killed the fetus inside and then it gives you labor contractions to give birth. So I gave birth in 2018. That is the most pain I've ever felt in my life. I have respect for mothers. When I see a woman who has a child and I see a child misbehaving, I even want to beat the child on their behalf, because I know what labor pain is.
At this point, what's going on in your mind?
In my mind, all I wanted was, at this point, there was even no word like struggle. I had become the word struggle. My skin was tough. There was nothing that could, shock me anymore. There was, whatever came, I had to go through it. Whatever came.
Literally just blank.
Yeah. So I gave birth to the baby. The labor pains came. I gave birth. I pushed. I pushed. The child came up, but the child was dead, because the injection is supposed to kill the fetus, and then you get labor pains. So it so happened in February 2020, the Uganda National Roads Authority. This is the road to my turning point, and it was literally God's intervention, because I wasn't leaving the streets for sure. The Uganda National Roads Authority was constructing a road in the place where my mom was buried. So what they do is they compensate the family of the children of the people buried there, so that it can facilitate for relocation of the bones and whatever. So the money came at this time. This was it came in February. So my brother, the one who follows me, went on the streets and started looking for me. And he said, so he found me eventually. And he told me, this is what's on ground. This money has come. He told me, I'm not going to give you the money directly. If you need money, come to my office. Tell me what it's for, and then we get it. He got me a broker. We went looking for houses. He found a house. He said how much he paid. He got my share of the money, paid 4 months. He said first be there. That's where I started. I had a roof over my head. I could have a shower. It was like a bed sitter, but it was a place, Now I started working on my resume. I hadn't worked in 4 years. I didn't even know if the advertising industry, the landscape of the advertising industry was still the same, if it was even relevant. But I said, you know what? I did job interviews. I got some callbacks. Some callbacks I didn't get because, of course, the references I put there. I was such a terrible employee. There was nothing good being said there, Now, towards the end of March, when things are starting to look good, COVID. But it was so timely, because I don't know where I was going to be on the street during the COVID lockdown, because they deployed LDUs on the street of Kampala. Whoever you find outside of curfew, don't ask questions, lock up. So I was in that house, no money, bars are closed.
So no drink for you.
Bars are closed. I was staying in a place that was not really remote, but very far from the main road. Only essential workers are moving. So the breweries and the drinking companies are not sending to the shops. In the shops, you would only find basic necessities, sugar, what. So I had no access to alcohol. I'm stuck in the house. I can't move. This was now the beginning of my rehab with God. I started a mental battle. I keep telling people that the greatest battlefield is the one of the mind, because you can't walk away from it. You carry it with you everywhere. So I started having withdrawals. My life was, I was now extremely sober. Yeah. When you use a mind that is used to chaos, cannot comprehend clarity. So now everything that I had been trying to drink away, that I was trying to, it was there. That was rock bottom. I couldn't go forward. I couldn't go back. I had no money. I had to face my life. And I cried so much. I started now thinking about mom. I started thinking about family. I started thinking about how I had hurt my family, how I had hurt friends. Now that's when the condemnation has started coming in. I hear stories of people who take their life because they're not happy of where they are. And it's actually very understandable, because condemnation, shame, and guilt are very real emotions that people deal with. And unfortunately, we have not been taught as a society how to deal with negative emotions. We haven't. Eventually, I believe it was July 23rd, that's when I gave my life to Christ. Yeah, on the radio. I gave my life to Christ. The pastor called me. He guided me. He walked with me. I told him I've been struggling with alcoholism and this and that. He advised me, what to do. First of all, it was lockdown, so you couldn't advise that he meet a support group, meet this and this. But also on my end, it was a lot of work. That's how the book Woman Fire Grace was born. Woman Fire Grace for me was a healing project. For me. It was me. I wrote it on my phone.
Wow.
Yeah, this entire book, I wrote it on my phone. And for me, what it was deal with whatever is hidden.
That's causing you to hide behind the
this is if you read this story, it's like literally my life story. So I started, even when you read it, it starts from I was born here and here and here, up to the point where I was in 2020. That's how I wrote that book. I came to a point where I acknowledged that I had hurt my family, I had hurt my friends. I wrote down lists of people that I had hurt. I called them, I texted them. And this was basically for forgiveness. Forgiveness is not for other people, it's for you. It's for you. And so I made the necessary amends. I called my friends. I said, I'm sorry for this and this and this. I stole money from friends. I ruined business deals for friends. I messed up people's lives. There are people who were owing me so much. I was owing so much money. And I told them, you know what? I was going through this. Some of them didn't respond. Some of them got in touch and said, okay, you know what? I understand. Of course, there are people who are going to say, I understand, but still don't want to be close to you. You still have to be okay with that, And so that was the beginning of the journey, making amends, finding forgiveness. Then from there, I was now able to say, you know what? Let me finish this story. I wrote the book, and eventually it was released, it was published. And for me, it's not even for me anymore, it's other people. Right. And that's actually what I do now. I go sharing my story. I didn't know how impactful my story was. I just thought, Rebecca, just useless, who used to sleep in beaches, who used to be in bars every day. But it turns out that there are so many people who are being impacted, not just by alcoholism, but also there are so many different things in families that are undealt with. It really took God to give me a second chance. I had given up on myself. Because there was nothing. No, remember the COVID time? Yeah. You never knew. You didn't even know if you had got it or you hadn't. You didn't know when. No one knew if it was going to go. Every day you're hearing 5 million people now have died. Sidri, this. It was just frightening. And me, I just looked and said, you know what? I think this life thing, God has decided. Let it end like this. And for me, it's just seeing myself here today. It's a miracle in itself. Indeed. Every passing day, I look back and, people tell me, but how did you survive? To be honest, I can't tell, I have no answer for them except God allowed me to survive. Because going through, there are even other incidents where I almost lost my life that I don't even talk about on the streets, that I don't talk about. I just highlight those two because there are people who find themselves in those situations. There are girls who disappear. You hear somebody went to the bar at a body was found, a girl was strangled. This is what happens.
Were you able to finally face your dad, and how was that like?
Yes, it was. Of course, it was not easy. It was not easy, but what has to be done has to be done. And also knowing the kind of person that he is. My father is a very reserved person. He's not the person who's going to say, sobbing tears, my daughter, I love you, la, da, da, He just said, I'm grateful for what God is doing in your life and I'm proud of you. Mm-hmm. And for me, that was good enough for me because that is how I've never had the conversation with him of how he coped, because in hindsight, when I see what he did, him kicking me out of the house, I kind of understand what he was, because this is someone who saw something happen to his late wife. Now it's manifesting in his youngest daughter. He didn't know how to deal with it. And in our society today, in our families, we don't know how to deal with people who are dealing with compulsive disorders or who are dealing with mental issues. Yeah, we stigmatize them so much because we don't understand it. Yeah, and so they end up being excommunicated. And the worst thing is when you kick someone out of a sheltered place like family and throw them on the streets. Even the streets are so loving; they will love you to death, literally. Whatever you're looking for that is destroying you, the streets will give it to you double. It will double.
So in short, you're destroying their life.
You're literally throwing them from the frying pan into the fire. And so families need to become the place of charity and love that they are meant to be. Addicts are annoying people. They are liars. They're compulsive liars. They steal. But they too have a problem. They have a problem. They know. If you see somebody who is dealing with substance abuse, don't think that they don't know that they have a problem. They know. It's just that every time that they lift that cigarette, every time that they lift that drink, there is a battle that has taken place in their mind and they've lost. They did not want to do it, they lost. And so we have to be compassionate towards others. We're not perfect. God deals with some people at midday, for some other people at midnight. So we have to get back to a place where we are our brother's keeper, you know, because what they need is actually love. Alcohol, weed, pornography, gambling, these are symptoms of the problem. There's a deeper issue at hand. And the problem is the environments that we have created for people are not safe enough for them to deal with those issues. They're full of condemnation, judgment, you know, so they won't open up. They will instead continue drinking and finding, you know, solace in whatever is near or available, whether it's destructive or not. And the worst thing is that the destructive ones are the cheapest and the most available. Alcohol is cheaper than therapy, do you know?
Yeah, sure.
You go to a therapist, tell them, I have been struggling with alcohol and this, and the therapist tells you I charge 3.5 million per hour. Like, why don't I go to the, why?
Yeah.
Do you understand? Yeah, and that's actually one of the things that led me to become a sobriety coach. Because there are people who, first of all, cannot afford counseling. They can't afford rehab. Rehab is expensive. And many people also don't need rehabilitation. They just need someone to let them know. For some people, they have, you know, deeper rooted issues that need clinical assistance. Other people have just had a bad day and just need to be told, this too shall pass. You don't have to drown yourself in this. You don't have to, you know. And so that's why I became a sobriety coach. We can't be complaining about, you know, our youth are going this and this and this. Every national problem started as a regional problem started as a community problem started as a family problem started as an individual problem. We need to come back to ourselves. The places that we are, how are we raising our children? How are we raising our children? Children are great imitators. We have to give them something good to imitate. You can think your child is not watching you. You hit your wife in front of your child when they're 7 years old. When that person is 40 years old, might even be a great, I don't know, MP or a person of prominence. Next thing the tabloids are saying, this person hit the wife. And people say, what happened? Not knowing that the subconscious mind kept that. So what are we doing as a society to ensure that we have a very good space for our generation that's coming? Me, I've made my mistakes. They say life, people say that ati life is the best teacher. Life is the worst teacher, which is the reason I'm very generous with my story. Nobody should go and wait let me also wait for 15 years. Maybe things might not be as bad as they were for Rebecca. Listen to me now. Because 15 years, you'll never get them back. Me, I'm just lucky by the grace of God. I'm able to, people look at me now and say, is this the same Rebecca we saw in 2020? Because God restores, you know. And I'm so grateful for what God has done in that time, ever since then. Just giving me the opportunity to be able to talk to other people. Also being able to write as well. And just generally being able to give, just to give back. Because there's a point where, to me, life, I didn't want to wake up in the morning. I said, let me drink. Maybe one day I will drink myself into a stupor and I won't wake up. There are times it actually crossed my mind. The hustling on the street is hard. It's hard work, you know. And so that's really just the gist of it. I'm so grateful to God. Everywhere I go, I have to thank God.
Where can people find you? Where can people find your book? How can people walk this journey with you before we wrap up? So tell them.
Okay, my book is available at Nuria Bookstore.
Nuria Bookstore.
Yes, Nuria Bookstore. If you'd like it in Amazon, it's available as well, paperback and Kindle. And I'm on social media as well. Instagram.
Tell us the names.
Kye Makyeli, Kye, full stop, Makyeli, Kye Makyeli. I'm on Twitter at Kye Makyeli as well. Yeah.
We'll link all those profiles and
there's
platforms.
A link. There's just one link. You will see everything.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And then how can people, do you have a phone number that people can maybe call you if they
absolutely. You can reach me on my Kenyan number. That's 0798 285 585.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Rebecca, your story is intriguing. And the fact that you're very open with some of the darkest and most horrifying incidents of your life without even flinching, without even pausing to wonder
that's
how
healing.
people look at you. Exactly.
That's what healing is. Yeah.
And I'm glad to see you like this, strong, confident, courageous, to face those demons and tell them that they did not defeat you.
Indeed.
And instead, you're out here showing people that this is just the beginning.
Yeah, it is.
And because there will be going to be so many other books, so many other inspirational platforms that you'll come up with to help people, not just in Kenya, not just in Uganda, throughout the world.
Amen.
So we're so grateful.
Thank you so much for having me.
And thank you for trusting me with your story.
Always.
Look, consistently looking for me from all over the platform. Thank you. I actually appreciate that. And thank you so much for giving us your time and your story. We appreciate you and we wish you the very best.
Thank you so much.
There you have it. That has been the story of Rebecca. Now this woman has fire and grace. And you can get this book from all these platforms that we will share with you on the pinned comment, plus her contact information where you can reach her and talk to her more about this. If you're struggling with any substance abuse and you need help, rise from that ash and face your demons. She's the girl to face. She is the girl to look for. Well, thank you so much for staying with us till the end of the show. My name is Yvonne Kawira, and until next time, keep it Tuko.